we're talking about the specific set of data that Ad Astra provides that we call Align and Predict. Those are kind of the two coined names that are specific to our schedule projections, or the course by course projections. And we wanted to start that conversation just with an understanding of where this fits within the idea of the schedule refinement process. Where does this data come into play, and how have we seen different institutions insert this into historical efforts? So you see here, we're starting kind of with this spring schedule refinement, as noted, as we're kind of in the August space now. You all are finishing up fall, heading into spring. As that fall schedule finishes and you all begin to roll forward your spring schedule, or take a copy of that spring schedule from 2021 and put it into your SIS for 2022, that's really when this information that we have begins to take effect, or can have impact. We can actually do that roll forward on our end as well, but most times it's kind of the ceremonial kickoff process for the schedule build when that roll forward begins. And that's really when our data that I'll show today would start to be inserted into the process. That Align and Predict predict data becomes available towards the end of, in this case, the fall term. Once that fall term finishes up, we have all of that student data, what they're registered in, and we can use that data to help project out for the spring 2022 term. On top of that Astra schedule, the room optimization comes into play there as well, as you begin to build that schedule and place it in rooms. We also have some Align data that I'll show that would be available for a future term if you're thinking fall 2021. So the focus today will be that Align specific and Predict data. Know that that's, again, when the schedule build start, that's the data that you're going to be looking at as you finish that schedule refinement and complete it and put it out there for students. The spring registration period would then begin, and that's when we'll be tracking that those same course level data points in Monitor. The third app we'll look at today, which is just that actual kind of registration monitoring day-to-day level data. So that's really the process. When your schedule refinement or your schedule build begins, you're going to look at the Align and Predict data. When you release it to students, it's the Monitor data, and then you start that process over as you begin fall and summer and launch that schedule. So that's the idea. We'll come back to this here in just a bit. To get to the purpose of using this type of data and why specifically we feel like the lens that we have or that we provide is unique and helpful. It's really narrowed down to the better we can understand the course schedule, how it's filling, and how your students are interacting with that course schedule, the better we can understand their ability or their opportunity to graduate in on time and in the way that we want them to. So really, if we can align this schedule to student demand with a higher level of confidence than one of those barriers that students face towards graduation, we know they have a lot, but one of them being getting the right courses in the right terms, we can begin to check that box that we're doing our due diligence in aligning that schedule. And what we hope that impacts is this idea of degree velocity. We call it degree velocity. It's our degree velocity measure is basically a time to degree pseudonym in which we're trying to measure the current population of students and how fast are they moving to degree. So our approach to that is to calculate a productive credit hour rate. We look at every student in the moment and say, how many credits have they historically taken on a term by term or an academic year basis? And we divide that by 30 to just compare them to a student that would be moving as fast as possible, 30 credits in an academic year. And that gives us this degree velocity measure, which is really, again, what we're all trying to impact here with this type of scheduling data. The more we can align that schedule to demand, the more productive credit hours students are getting and the faster they graduate. So I'll show this data in the site as well, but just a quick definition of degree velocity. It's, or a good example, if a student completes, let's call it 24 credit hours in their first academic year, fall and spring, we're going to track that. We call that total credit hours attempted. It's in the site. You can kind of see it at a student by student or even a program by program level. In this particular case, we're saying maybe that this student completed 24 credit hours, but only 21 of them were productive to degree, meaning maybe the 3 of their credit hours that they took were unproductive. They failed the course. Maybe they took the wrong course. They took a course off their pathway, or most likely, kind of the most common unproductive credit hour we see is remedial, where students are having to take a remedial math course before they get into the math course that their program actually requires. While we know it's not technically unproductive, students have to take it to progress forward, it does slow them down. And so we're kind of counting that against that particular area as far as the degree velocity. So you see we've got the 21 credit hours that are productive. We're going to divide that by 30 to get a 70% degree velocity. And this is the number at a student and at a program and at an institutional level that we are hoping that this schedule refinement process and the use of this data can really begin to impact. So just trying to kind of tie this together as to why we're having, why the purpose of schedule refinement beyond all of the obvious ones, this being somewhat obvious, but we're really hoping to narrow in on what courses within your schedule are maybe hampering the student's ability to get more productive credits and thus move faster to degree. So all of that to be said, let's go ahead and jump in and kind of show you how we approach that general problem within the software itself. So you should see my Ad Astra platform screen at this point. We're going to today focus again on this Align application. The Align application being the projection set on a term-by-term basis that allows us to forecast into those future terms. So I'm going to click in on Align here. And what pops up is a list of courses. You're noting that I've got a term selected here. I'll just kind of reselect that to show you how that works. I'm typing in the fall 2021. That's the term I'm interested in seeing the projections for today. And what I'm getting down below is a list of all of the courses that are offered for fall 2021. These are courses sorted by campus, as noted by, let's look at this Arts 1301, Art and Society, fall 2021 term, and then the campus here is this Mahomes campus. That is on your sites, if you're following along, that's going to be the different campuses that come out of your student information system. So that's what we're representing, just the course itself. And then the offered column here shows how many sections and seats of that course are currently being offered. So if this is during a schedule build, it's going to be kind of what your roll forward showed or what's in your SIS now. If it's during registration, it'll be live to that registration. Either way, this is picked up on a day-by-day basis to show how many sections and seats of that course are offered. So we get that baseline of what we've got out there. And then on top of that, we're showing kind of this needed number. And I'm going to focus in on a particular department here. Let's do art and design. And how about this Arts 1303 here in the middle? So we've got 2 sections offered, 85 seats. We're saying the needed, which is our projection set, is 3 sections and 111 seats. That leads us to giving this course a little up arrow on the left. This up arrow is what we call kind of a marker for addition or an addition candidate. Those that have an up arrow next to them, we're saying are courses to review to potentially be adding more seats or sections. So anything with that up arrow, we're saying, hey, you should take a look at this course. We may need an extra section or some more seats if possible. So in this case, this Arts 1303 on the combined campus is an addition candidate. We see 2 sections offered, 3 sections needed. Where does that 3 sections needed come from is always the question. And we're going to jump into that. You see, I clicked into that particular course. What's going to pop up here on the top, just the term that we've selected, the campus. In this case, I've got this combined campus. That's the name of the campus. The offered column, like we saw, the needed column, like we saw on the outside as well. So this 111 seats, where we're getting it, we are showing down below here where that number comes from. So we start with one of the data points being the historical trend of this course over the past 5 like terms. So you see down here the last 5 fall terms, 16 to fall 2020. The blue is the representative of census enrollment. So roughly we've had, I don't know, 109, 100, fall 2020, we had 111 registrations out there for ARTS 1303. That's then going to be trended out to fall 2021 and represented in this green line that we call the historical trend. In this case, we're saying the historical trend is 112 for the course. So kind of based on what we've seen historically, we think it's going to fill right around that 112 individual seats. We're going to take that 112 and blend it with a student level data point that we all predict. And I'm hovering over that student level data point here. It's at 102 for the predict projection. Predict comes from the actual student level data that we're importing for each institution and utilizing both the students and their academic history up against the students' pathways to say what are the courses that each of these students needs, or what are up next in their degree sequences or pathways, and how many of those students do we have. So in this case, we have 102 students that have this course up next in their pathways. So what does up next in our pathways mean? We can kind of find that out here by clicking in up top to the Students tab. When I click in on the Students tab, we get a breakdown of those 102 students that I was just highlighting in the Analysis tab as to how many students we think we have that need this course. All of these students here, some of them are current students. You'll see these are real students. Obviously, in our demo site, they're real. That need, in this case, ARTS 1303, and they have it up next in their actual degree map or their sequence. So if we take a look at Marlin here, we click into Marlin. We are projecting that Marlin's going to take this course in fall 2021, and that is going to be based on the course sequence for each individual program. So in this case, Marlin is an LABA arts major. The arts pathway or course sequence, we're going to call them pathways, is lined out here for Marlin. These are 1 to N, essentially, on the order in which we want our students to take this course. And we call this, as mentioned, a pathway. So we're basically saying Marlin has completed everything in the green, whether that be an individual course or maybe a gen ed rule. And those in the yellow are what we're projecting Marlin to take. In this case, Marlin has ARTS 1303. This course is the #1 course that he should be taking in this pathway. And he has yet to take it. And so we're projecting that he will be enrolling in this course in that upcoming term. So just a kind of a straightforward way of saying what is a student taken. As you note here in the green, you can see what they've completed, which of the rules they've completed. And then we're looking to find what courses are the next up courses for that student. If it's an individual course like ARTS 1303, we'll give them demand for that course. If it's a group of courses, like in this English 2316 case, where we're saying English 2316 is the course that they should take, but we also know that there's a number of other courses that they could take if in an effort to graduate. And so we're running some algorithms there to say, well, we know English 2316 is the one we want them to, but what are they actually doing in these cases? And we use kind of some probability rankings to give demand to single courses within this group. So for Marlin, we're saying he's likely to take, instead of English 2316, Philosophy 2306, and that's what we're giving him demand for. So if we were to go in the Align interface, go click on Philosophy 2306, we would see Marlin's name there as well. So all of this data, this pathways data, this student level data, actually lives in another app that we call the Pathways app. I'm going to jump over there real quick. You see in my little Rubik's Cube up top here, here's a list of all of our applications. I'm going to open the Pathways app separately just to kind of show you where we store that source level data set. This is Obviously, it's institutional based on your programs, the course sequences that you all have lined out. If we go look for that arts, there's 87 students in that LABA arts pathway that Marlon was in. Marlon is one of those 87 that we're tracking. This is kind of a daily update here of how many students are in each of the programs. We can click in and we see that same pathway, right? That same pathway that we were highlighting up against Marlon. His academic history, we're now showing kind of the template for that pathway, where we're saying Arts 1303 is first, 1311, 1312, amongst others. There's those course groups in which we're going to make that individual projection for a student based on past patterns of students in LABA arts. And then we get all the way to the bottom and you've got a number of different kind of requirement sets. So this is that individual pathway. We can edit these. We have kind of a storage system here that we're able to version them for new catalog versions. We can edit them, we can add alternates. If we wanted to resequence Arts 1303, we can kind of drag and drop that around. Lots of different ways to help redesign how that demand is allocated and thus redesign maybe how you're going to offer that schedule. So keep that in mind, that this is all kind of stored in this Pathways app, not for one program, but for all of your programs, as you see here. And we're updating the student count frequently as we move through different schedule builds. On top of that, we also have what we call the enrollment app. And that's here, and I'll bring that up. So this enrollment app, similar to the Pathways app, it is a source data set that fuels that initial set align that I showed, so those course projections. The enrollment app is a breakdown of the students population that we believe is headed into whatever term we're looking at. In this case, I'm interested in fall 2021 as our projection or analysis term. These are all of the students that we think are going to be in taking courses in fall 2021 for our institution. Some of them are real students like Wei, Han, Clemencia, all of them are real students that we've seen previously and are likely enrolled in spring 2021. Others are simulated students, and you see those simulated students numbers up here. We have 3 different types of simulated students. We have new students, transfer, and returning. The goal of simulating students is to represent, for a fall term, the incoming freshman class. So if we wanted to see some simulated new students, here are kind of students that we are creating to represent the incoming freshmen that we know are going to be at the institution, but because we're making these projections before registration starts or even before any of the work is done on admitting students sometimes, we're creating this simulated student population. And they come in with individual programs. The amount of simulated students is based on program level trends. So if your nursing program is growing by 10% every term, we're going to project that there's a 10% increase for simulated students for new coming into that particular program. We're also doing that same thing for transfer students as well as returning. So a transfer student is a student that we're seeing coming in with real credits. In this case, you see we've got roughly 1,400 or 1,500 transfer credit or transfer students that are coming into the institution. We're going to use that same process for transfer students, except these students are going to have actual credits when they come in. They're not going to be as kind of set up as a new student. So the idea there is, again, to represent who it is that's coming in. When they do come in with credits, we will simulate in kind of common sets of credits based on what we've seen historically. So if a particular program, media production, consistently comes in with, their English core complete, then a certain number of those transfer students are going to come in with their English core complete. The last bucket is returning students. These are stop out students we've seen at the institution before that stopped out, and we're simulating them kind of back in. Maybe they didn't come to spring 2021, but we commonly see a pattern of those types of students taking a term off and coming back. The last bucket is departing students. So we know that some of your students aren't going to return. We're not projecting exactly who that is. We're not going to say that Shalonda or Miles are going to be the ones that don't retain, but we know somebody's not going to come back. And so we're going to simulate those students out in this departing simulated student, and we'll just subtract them when we get to the course level. So all of that data then is rolled up at the course, and I popped back into a line here, back into our ARTS 1303 course. Remember, I was at this straight from that Align screen, and then I clicked on that Students tab. Here is where you see, for this ARTS 1303 course, we've got 55 current students projected, 18 new, 47 transfer, 3 students returning, and then 21 students that we're expecting to depart. 21 of these students that we're projecting, we're also taking away. So that gives us that total number, in this case, from a projection standpoint, of, I think it was 102, if I remember right, for this course. Yep, the predict number is 102. And so back to our projection, we're going to blend 112 with 102 to get this 111 seats needed. And we'll compare that seats needed and sections needed to what you're offering. And where there's that difference, that's when we highlight the candidate course of an addition. So that was a long way to get to that particular set, but hopefully it helps to give you a perspective as to how we're calculating or breaking out this data to better understand not just what the historical trend is, but really how many students do we have out there. If we only offer 85 seats in this particular course for this term, there's going to be roughly 20, 25 students, excuse me, that don't get the course. Are we okay with that? In some cases, yeah, it's fine. It's not a big deal, especially for a course like this. For those liberal arts majors, it was a requirement. For other students, it could be a gen ed requirement. So maybe they can either wait to get that gen ed, or maybe there's even availability in another course. But our goal here is to highlight, not mandate the change. We're not saying, we call it a candidate for a purpose. It's what the data is pointing you towards reviewing. Obviously, the institutional context, that local source of knowledge from a scheduling perspective, that being the chair, the dean, the associate dean, whoever's making these decisions, will have that context to utilize this data to make the decision whether or not this addition is truly needed. Let's say they do go ahead and agree that we need that third section. One of the other questions that comes up is, what time do we offer that section at? So this sections tab here in the middle, when you click on that, you're going to initially get a list of sections that are offered for this particular course. If you flip over here to the conflict graph, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. If we flip over to the conflict graph, what you'll see down below here is this color-coded heat map that highlights times of day that are higher or lower in relation to the risk of this course conflicting with another course that the same population of students needs. So what we're doing, we're taking that group of students from the Students tab, we're looking at all of the courses that they need, and then subsequently all of the sections of those courses, and we're plotting them on this graph. And the darker the color, the more kind of risk that particular time zone is one in which it's, if we were to offer a section of ARTS 1303, it would conflict with other courses that students need. So obviously the worst time, not surprisingly, this is a freshman level type of course. And so the worst times you're going to see are prime time, 9 to noon, 9 to 1. That's the darkest. We know that's going to be most likely to conflict. If we click on this Tuesday at 9 a.m., what you'll get here is a breakdown of all of the other courses that conflict with this one for that population of students. So there's 39 students in that students list that we're projecting need this course, that need ARTS 1303 and also are projected to take ARTS 1311 this term. So for those 39 students, this section, if we were to offer a section at Tuesday at 9, it would conflict with one of the other sections of ARTS 1311. In this case, there's 3 sections of ARTS 1311, so it's probably not a huge deal to add it. They've got 2 other options, and thus that's why it's a little bit lighter blue versus the darker blue, where it's maybe there's less sections. Yeah, ARTS 1312, there's 1 of 2 sections and 33 students. maybe some other ones where there's only one section available. It's just got a higher likelihood to conflict with more students. And so we're saying, hey, if you're going to add that extra section, try to stay away from Monday, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday would be better. Even better would be the 8 a.m. slot. Again, purely from the lens of student conflict. You can filter this by pathway. So if we wanted to just see those arts majors, we can filter down there. They're going to have similar type of data. You see they have no conflicts at 8 a.m., so it's completely white. Similar numbers, though, for the rest of the day. We can also filter down to just students that have this course as a requirement. It's not an option. So we're basically filtering out general education there, and just showing what are the times that you want to stay away from if you're trying to stay away from other courses that are required for this population of students. And that's where you get that real dark blue. Hey, there's some major requirements in here that we want to try not to conflict with. So that gives us kind of a full circle look here at how we would evaluate a course. Just to skim back over that, we start by kind of on the Align tab, finding whatever it is that you're interested in. If it's your department level, maybe you're a centralized scheduling unit and you're just interested in seeing the candidate courses specific to this term. So we would say, all right, Arts 1303 is a candidate course. It's an addition. Let's take a look. Is this a real kind of something that we should be acting on? Looks like the historical trend for the course is pretty consistent. We've been filling at or near the cap of the course over the last 5 years, and we can actually see that even furthermore down here in this grid. You see those enrollment ratios or the fill rates at 101%, 94, 97, 100, 97. These are all census enrollment ratios. Ad Astra's threshold for an overloaded course is 95%. So 4 out of the last 5 terms, this course has been overloaded or has been in question of meeting the demand out there. So that's a red flag. We come up and look at that historical trend. It's at 112. That makes sense. It's been about 100 capped out of the last 5 terms. We see at a student level, we've got 102 students. This would be kind of the checkbox for me from my scheduling perspective to say, all right, we know this course fills well. It's always filled well. We've only got the 2 sections out there at 85 seats. Historically, we've offered closer to 110 or 112 seats. Ad Astra is saying that we have the capacity, we have the need at 111 or 3 sections. The students are out there as well. We could offer this extra section, and its likelihood to not just fill but actually serve more students is highly likely. It's not a very risky addition from our perspective, just because there's so many different data points pointing in the general kind of direction of needing that 3rd section. So at that point, we would maybe want to go look at students to see who it is, or look at the sections to check the timing. I'd pop over here to the sections graph, see the conflict. What times do we want to stay away from, and who is that going to impact? So I'm going to stop there. Happy to take questions on that process in general. I showed really 3 different apps there across the board. The main one being this Align application with supporting data or really driven by the data coming out of the Pathways app, which is the course sequences, and the Enrollment app, which is your individual students and who's in there. Obviously, you can click in here. I didn't show this, but you can click in and see at any of the students where they're at in their pathways. So questions on that type of data? Cool. If you have any of those questions, feel free to pop them into that chat. I'm happy to take those throughout today. Let's kind of flip the script here and look at the opposite end. You see me sorting within Align. Pretty much anything that you're going to click on allows you to sort. So if you wanted to sort by A to Z, you're clicking course. If you want to sort by candidate type, we've got those additions. If I click the opposite end here, we're going to show the two other candidate types, one being a time change candidate. These are courses that we're seeing when we talk about that conflict risk, where we see a high conflict risk for a currently offered section, we are going to highlight that as a time change candidate. So for this printmaking course, if we click in on the sections and conflict, there is some overlap here with this particular evening level course fitting into a space that is actually in direct conflict with another course that students need. They're both absolute requirements. And so you've got kind of a call out here to say for ARTS 2333, is this a course that we maybe want to potentially change the time of just because it's in direct conflict? So these are, again, candidates. I think they're worth drilling into for sure before the term. Once registration starts, you're obviously not going to want to mess with that. But generally, what you've got there is a good way for us to dial up where there's some potential issues for students in completing the pathway as you've designed. The third candidate type are reduction candidates. These are courses that we are projecting you could actually reduce down from the number of sections that you're at currently to a fewer or lower amount of sections. So I'm going to see if I can find a multi-section one. This is a decent example, not perfect, but Accounting 5312 here, Foundations of Accounting, planning to offer 2 sections. The projection says 1 section and 6 seats are needed. We're calling this a reduction because you can technically reduce from 2 sections of 18 seats in total to 1 section of 6 seats and still be able to serve those 6 students. We're not saying reduce down to 0. We're saying reduce from 2 to 1, where you're only offering the 1 section, likely 9 seats of that section. You're able to cover those 6 seats. Again, this is where the context of the schedule really comes into play, where we're trying to tee up, where that demand is not in alignment with what you're offering, and then the scheduled decision maker can utilize that data to say, yes, but one of these is an evening section, and we're not trying to reduce any evening sections for this particular graduate program, or one of them is a specific special session, and we're not looking to reduce down. You can kind of see here, this is the live enrollment, 4 out of 8 in one and 2 out of 10 in the other. We probably should have looked at reducing down this second one. It's an online section, second 8 weeks. So the goal is not to try to cut your way to growth or even really efficiency. It's to open up opportunities with these reductions to maybe rebalance your schedule. If you go from 3 sections down to 2, utilizing one of these reduction candidates, what does that do for your instructional capacity elsewhere? We now maybe have a faculty available in that department to teach another course. Let's go look. Are there any addition candidates that we're confident in that faculty can teach? Can we just rearrange the schedule to create a little bit more balance to student demand, rather than just rolling forward the schedule like we commonly see and kind of allowing it to fill at 60 or 65% with multiple sections and another course in the same area filling at 100%, when we know if we were just to flip-flop one of those, we'd be able to serve students a little better. Cool. So the last candidate type, let me just see if I can find one. Yep, it's not really a candidate. It's just this checkbox. So these are no actions. We are basically saying that the demand for the course is in enough of alignment to what you're offering that we don't think you should be reducing or adding. So this is a decent example, History 3321. You got a section of 55 out there. It's projected to fill at 23 seats, so it's not going to fill very well, not even really to 50% of its cap, but we're not going to suggest to reduce down this section and not serve these 23 students, right? That's plenty big for a section to continue to run. And so we're saying, that your option here is just to keep what you've got because we do need to serve those 23 students. If that is, let's say, yeah, here's a good example. Truth, knowledge, and justice, or justification, one section and 35 seats offered. You see the projection is one section and 8 seats. Now this is going to show as a reduction because it falls beneath the Ad Astra threshold for a section of 10 seats. So you are going to see some of these, what we would call a single section reduction. You're only offering one section and we're suggesting to reduce it. That does occur when the projection is below 10 seats. So we're basically saying, hey, this is falling below that threshold. We know you still may need to serve these 8 students, but in this particular case, we're at least going to call out that it's projected to fill below that 10 level, and you should take a look at it. Is there a better way? Could we rotate this course? Maybe instead of offering it term after term, it does look like it's already rotated. This is a really good example. As you see, it's rotated fall 17, or didn't offer it in fall 18, offered in fall 19, didn't offer in fall 20. So we're back onto our rotation of offering this course for fall 2021. We filled 16 and 12 in the last 2 terms. We think we have 9 students out there that could take this course. The real question becomes, is this a requirement for them? So can we click in, let's see on Odessa here, and kind of decipher, is this a course that is needed for Odessa to complete the degree, or is this something that she's taking as an elective? Looks like she's already enrolled in the course, Philosophy 4305. She's enrolled in it for fall 2021. We are saying it's meeting the requirement of the 29th course here. Yeah, so this Philosophy 3327 can also be met by a number of these others. And so in this case, it worked out. We've got that enrollment, but the challenge being, we're going to be really close to offering this course, likely at that 8 to 9 to 10, 11, 12 seats threshold. And it's just a decision on, are we okay running a section that low? During registration, it's a little bit of maybe an easier decision as you see students registering. Ideally, this would be one that we'd make a decision before the term is rolled out to students. So those are the different candidate types and kind of how to read some of what we've got here on the Align screen. 2 more basics of kind of how this is functioning. If I go back to, say, my art, you're seeing here a couple different pieces I want to call out. So we've got a functionality within Align, and I'm guessing most of you have it set up if you're a current partner with Ad Astra. If not, let us know, and we're happy to create this. We call it kind of a combined campus. Some schools will call it a total campus, but basically what we're doing when we launch Align, we can take any of your campuses and combine them into a single demand point to be able to review not just at the Mahomes campus or not just at the Reed campus, but in totality, how many seats and sections of this course do we need? This was something that was kind of reactive on our part as we headed into COVID, and all of a sudden campus didn't matter anymore for some of our multi-campus schools because everything was offered online. And we really wanted to be able to understand not how many sections historically have we offered across all 3 of our campuses, but how many sections do we need in a single online type of format. And so if you're interested in that, you can create this campus. It's something that shows up just in Ad Astra. It doesn't write back to your SIS, but it takes all of your demand, all of your offerings, combines it into one single data point line and says, hey, if you were to offer kind of across the board, you're planning to offer 5 sections and we think you need those 5 sections, or right at 274 seats. So it is kind of our way of, especially if, who knows what we're going to look like here in a month or 2 as we are rolling or finishing these schedules, or even in spring 2022, if we have to go back to more online, utilizing that combined campus to just gauge whether or not across the board we have enough seats. It's kind of a unique lens that the tool can provide to better understand that. The other pieces that you're kind of seeing within that, you're seeing me click around up here in these filters. Obviously, the campus filter is pretty self-explanatory. The department filter as well, just hosting all of the courses by department. If you're interested in getting a greater level of nuance, you can create unique filters to whatever really that you're interested in. Some of the more common ones that we see in particular are the Gen Ed type of filters. So I've got just a generic Gen Ed, all Gen Ed courses filter built into our demo site here. But anything can really be a filter. You can see we can create these filters with any of these fields, whether it be campus, candidate types. There's college in here as well. If you're a PeopleSoft school and you've got division, we can create that by division, seats needed, seats offered, candidate type, all of that can be filtered down. You can create those filters and save them. And that's kind of what shows up here in my set, is that idea of those save filters. I can also send those filters out to other people. So if I wanted to send them to Kim, I can share that filter with Kim by clicking his name here and hitting share. And now when Kim logs in, he's going to get this same filter that I created for general education courses. First, he's going to get an email saying that Caleb sent him that filter. And then when he logs in, he'll see in his quick filters that same Gen Ed filter, allowing us to kind of look at a subset of courses independently, but together. To that point, we do have schools that are utilizing this idea of section or course status. That is part of some of the filters that I've built here. The status field represents kind of a light workflow of communication centrally on the course surrounding the data itself. So in my, let's call this ARTS 1301 example, we're saying we only need 5 sections, but maybe we do want to add another section, or even better, the example that I've been using today, ARTS 1303. We can kind of model out that extra section of ARTS 1303 by clicking this plus button and moving it from 2, where it would have started, up to 3. So now we're saying, all right, we are going to go ahead and take action, moving from 2 sections, what is offered today, to the 3rd section that we'd like to offer. At that point, maybe myself as the department chair wants to notify my dean to get approval for that section. I can move this to reviewed, and I'll notify Kim, because he's my dean, to go ahead and approve this. And maybe I can type in something like, I'd like to add this section, right? So I move it to a reviewed status. Kim is now going to get a notification. He's also going to see this reviewed status change in his site, so that when he logs in, maybe it's his job as the dean to move it from reviewed to approved. And at that point, we're triggering a scheduler to go and create that section. So you can kind of use this workflow however you'd like in the different statuses. A lot of times when we see folks using it, we're seeing them create the filters that would allow you to come in. Maybe I'm a chair in the business college. Here's my BU college candidates. I'm coming in. Here are all of the courses that are showing as additions or reductions in my college. I'm going to work through them. I don't have to work through all of my courses, just the ones that are pertinent to me, that are in this addition bucket. I'm going to make a decision on them, and maybe I move them to reviewed. And now Kim, as the dean, comes in and uses the BU College Needs Approval filter. And now he's just seeing the courses that need approval. So here are 4 that are reviewed and 1 that's already approved, and he's making, looking at that data to make that approval, which then goes to the scheduler. So different ways to use that workflow for sure. You can work with your client success consultant to kind of figure out how this best fits into your process, but it does allow for kind of a centralized communication. Any of those changes that we make are going to be stored obviously on the Align homepage there, but also down below, there's a message board here of courses, or excuse me, of action on this particular course. So anytime we move it, change sections, move it from review to approved, it stores down in this message board to allow us to see who made that change, what exactly happened on what course. This is only specific to Econ 2302. So a good way to keep tabs on what's going on. You can also message here as well. So if I wanted to send Kim a message to say, hey, take a look, similar to what we were doing earlier with the status changes, I can send him a quick message on this course. He's going to get an email now again from Ad Astra saying that Caleb sent him a message with a link to this course. So another good way to kind of centralize that communication on the course itself, and really surrounding the data so that we're all kind of looking at the same data set. So those filters, again, you can have as many or as few as you'd like. You can share them, you can delete them, you can edit them at any point. All of that is doable within your specific site. If you need some help with that, we're here to help for sure. There's also a little filter help question box here that shoots you out to a good help article on how to build those different queries that we're creating when we create a filter. I encourage you to take a look at that. The other place, while we're on that topic, this little guy down here has some really good information, some quick guides. We call this the Astra Bot. He lives down here. Some quick guides to each of the different products, as well as a searchable database that you can search any term here and get help articles to support what you're looking for. Last piece I would say in this interface, obviously we can export any of this information. Anytime you see this download button or this export button, you're clicking that, you're shooting it out to Excel. That's available at the student level in that student list page. It's available here, pretty much anywhere. We've got that built in to where you can export it. It sends it straight to your downloads folder. Cool. So the last piece here that I want to show, and again, please feel free to pop in with questions. We're kind of in a unique time right now in the sense of registration happening for, I'm assuming everyone on fall 2021. So you are able to, if you're interested, obviously look at the data for fall 2021, the projection set data, and then pop over to what we call Monitor to see the actual registration for the course. So I'm gonna show this, and then I'll kind of show, actually, I think I'll show Monitor first and then come back to that. But Monitor is our registration tracking app. So it again lives up here in this app bucket. It's built to, on a day-by-day basis, pull in your registration for courses and just track how each of those courses are filling individually. So you'll note I'm back on fall 2021. That same list of courses that we saw in Align will be what's populating here in Monitor. And this is, again, just a day-by-day breakdown. So this updated at about 3 a.m. this morning Central Time. What you're seeing here is the same look and feel of Align, the course, title, term, campus. The enrollment ratio is our term for fill rate. So in this case, we're saying this course has 100% enrollment ratio, set 274 enrollments out of the 275 seats, the 5 total sections offered. Those 5 sections are represented here in these little bubbles. So each section each bubble is its own section. If you hover over those bubbles, you'll see the individual enrollment and enrollment ratio of those sections. So we've got 4 of them that are completely full. This 5th one has got 1 seat available. The coloration of the bubbles is representative of the fill rate for that section. So all of these that are dark blue are completely full or filling above kind of in that top tier. You'll see some that are like this, where it's filled at 71%. So it's kind of half full, that section's half full. 10 of the 11 sections are almost completely full or are completely full, and then the one is filled at 71%. In other cases, you've got some empty sections here that are filling below 30%. Those are going to be showing as kind of completely empty. So there's 3 different bubble types there that just help to give you a quick visual of how that course is doing. Let's continue with the ARTS 1303. This is the same course we looked at in Align. If we click into that course, we can get a better understanding of how quickly it filled. So you'll click in here. And what you'll see down below, 2 pretty simple graphs that just highlight the day-to-day enrollment of this course over the registration period. So we track enrollment on a day-to-day basis based on days until start of term. So the x-axis here just represents how many days out from the start of term were we. So in this case, we were 137 days out and there was 30 enrollments. As we move closer, you see that bottom gray number moving down, just representing we're getting closer to the term. The blue numbers moving up, representing we're getting more and more enrollments. And then just looks like maybe 21 days from the start of term, we got to that gray line, which is the number of seats offered. Excuse me. The graph here on the right, same idea, but just with the enrollment ratio. So 20 days out, we were at 99% enrollment for this course. The threshold of 85%, this red line is kind of an Ad Astra suggestion in an effort to balance course access and efficiency. That's our target. We found to be most successful in being able to provide both of those aspects. So that's kind of the target. We see it above this course up at that 99% level. If you remember, this was the one that we said, hey, we think we need maybe another 20 seats or so. So helping to highlight some of that. Down below, you get a breakdown of the modality of that particular course. This is something that's configured individually by school. So if you don't have modality data showing, let us know and we'll be happy to work with you to get that showing. You'll see the orange here represents online enrollments. The blue represents the number of hybrid enrollments. Same idea here on the right, just with the enrollment ratio. So the online version filled 49 days from start of term. We were at 100%. It's the hybrid that's kind of been lagging and eventually does fill. Down below, if you've been a partner with Ad Astra for a while, we will have some data here that shows just historically the yellow here is actually this term's enrollment progression. The green shows last year's enrollment progression, how quickly the course filled or where it landed. So you can kind of see last year in the green here, 10 days from start of term, we were at 107 enrollments. We're obviously not going to get there this year just because right now we're only offering those 85 seats. So number of different data points to help just understand how the course itself has filled during registration. The last tab is the sections tab. This highlights the individual sections offered. So similar to those bubbles, this just gives you the real detailed information on each of those sections, what the section number was, the modality, time of day, faculty teaching, that type of thing. So two things to note here. If you're in your site and you're not seeing these bubbles and you want to see the bubbles, it is a default feature that we turn off. So I'd encourage you to come up here to the top right and click on Settings. And in Settings, if you click on Monitor, there's two different features that you will start out with as having not enabled. And if you'd like to use them, you just need to click the green. So the second one here, this view section breakout in list, this is how you turn on those bubbles in Monitor, these things. If you don't have that, if you don't see them to start, it's literally just coming into this settings tab, Monitor, and clicking this. And as soon as you log back into Monitor or you flip back over to Monitor, you'll see those bubbles. The second feature here is kind of a verbose name, but switch quickly between Align and Monitor Analysis. Turning this on or enabling this will actually give you the ability within Align, when you click into a course, you'll see this drop down. So this doesn't come stock, you do have to turn it on, but if, let's say, for ARTS 1303, we're looking at it in Align as an addition, and I want to see what does this look like in Monitor right now? Like, what's the registration? If I click down on this Monitor Analysis, I can either click it, it'll take me there. I like to open it in a new tab. It's going to shoot me over to Monitor, the drill in for this particular course, for us to be able to see, all right, we know this course has 2 sections offered right now in 85 seats, and that Asterisk Protecting 3 and 111. As of today, how is this course filling? So if you use this guy here, it'll shoot you over to Monitor for that course, and now we can see that same data. 83 out of 85, it's nearly full. You can also start in Monitor and from that Monitor page, click into a course. Let's say we're interested in just those courses that are filled to you know, that 100% mark. If we want to see any of these courses, so let's say ARTS 1301, if we click in on that, you see that this now has this drop down to flip back to Align as well. So I know this course is full to 100%. I want to see what was the projection for that course. If I open it in a new tab, it'll shoot over to Align and show us that the actual projection for that course. So that's something you do have to turn on if you want to be able to flip back and forth. A lot of our folks just want to look at the registration or just want to look at Align. Obviously, there's no registration available if we're doing this during the schedule building, as we would be here soon for spring 2022. Awesome. The very last piece here in Monitor, I showed a little bit of that modality data. From the Courses tab in Monitor, if you're interested in a higher level data set for modality or just in general, you can click on this Analyze tab here. And this is going to show us some kind of rolled up metrics that are similar to what we have in Monitor, but just kind of combined. So you see days until start of term, the overall enrollment ratio. We can scroll down and see, I've got this filtered just to English right now, but the courses that are filled above 95% in English, the sections that have, this graph shows the sections that have less than 10 enrollments as of today, and the enrollment ratio of those sections. So this English 5301 section has 4 total enrollments. It's filled at 20%. Just kind of a way for us to highlight where individual sections are filling a little bit lower. And then the bottom is a breakdown of rolled up modality data or aggregate modality data, where we're seeing across all of, in this case, English, because I've got my English filter turned on here. We see that hybrid courses are 52% of the registration. Online is what, 19% or so. This graph just shows how that registration by modality has been progressing, and then registration or enrollment ratio by modality in that same way. So online asynchronous English level courses are all filled. They're at 100%, though we see over here it's a pretty small bucket. Down below, you have the seat offering and section offering counts. So 49% of the schedule is offered in 49% of the seats are offered in the hybrid modality, 22% are offered in online synchronous, et cetera. From a section perspective, 50% of the sections are offered in that hybrid modality. So we can actually pull, let me pull that English filter off here, and we'll get a total schedule look. But this is just a good way, I think, especially as you all are moving into spring 2022, if you're interested in knowing what did our students choose first, or what was kind of the most popular modality, starting here. It's not a perfect data set for that. We understand that, but it's better than just anecdotal information. This is real data that we can see how fast some of these different modalities filled. Cool. So today we went through Align, the projection set, and how the enrollment app, the individual student set, and the pathways, those course sequences, fuel that Align projection. We saw those students, we saw the projections individually. We popped over to Monitor to see the live registration for that course. Kind of getting back to our PowerPoint from this schedule refinement process perspective, as you all are headed into spring 2022, real quick, let's kind of talk through what data is available for you to look at now for spring 2022, and when that may change. So we can only do student level data or project student level data one term at a time. By that, I mean, we're in your sites likely still projecting fall 2021 using both students that haven't registered and students that have registered. Once we finish that registration for fall 2021 here in 30 days, 23 days, whatever that looks like, we can flip our projections over to spring 2022 utilizing the fall 2021 student population. We will begin to make those individual projections for spring 2022 using student level data. So that'll happen here roughly in about a month. In the meantime, you do have access to spring 2022 projections. They're going to be based singularly on the historical trend. So if you're in your site looking at spring 2022 and you're thinking, well, how do they know what students we're going to have? We haven't even finished fall yet. We don't. We're not utilizing those students yet. You see the difference here in Align in spring 2022. We're just using that historical trend. So for Arts 13-16, we've got how did this course fill in the last 5 spring terms, and we're just only utilizing that green number of the historical trend here in the seats needed. And this is a really good example of one that is super important to have the student count, because you can see every time we've offered this course, if we scroll down, it's filled at 103, 110, 103, 103% the last 4 terms. The trend is going to be 31 because we've just never offered more than 30 seats. So this trend is likely being held down by the fact that we've only offered 30 seats historically. So this is the type of course that that student level data is so important for. And you can make some inferences based on what you're seeing here that you need another section. That student level data will hopefully really call that out more specifically. So right now, for spring 2022, you've got the historical trend available. It works in the same way of candidate types. As we flip over and finish fall registration and turn on Predict for spring 2022, that once you work with your consultant to turn that on, the next day it will populate, and you'll have a new set of projections that will begin to update kind of on a day-by-day basis. So just kind of a caveat there to remember that the different timing, depending on where you are in this refinement process, there'll be different levels of data available. Obviously, for something like spring 2022, there's no monitor or registration tracking data available. We haven't started registration yet for that one. So it's really just Align until you're ready to flip it over and use student data.